kind of wonder about Jordan Love, and especially when he loses one of his best weapons in Tucker Kraft,
Yeah, he's
who
a
has
good
been
player.
awesome
Yeah.
this year. So even, regardless of the win or lose against the Panthers there, losing him is just a massive loss, I think, for that offense.
Go to BLG. He joins us right now. You can follow him at Brandon Gowton on X and read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. Make an account. Check in over there with the great community of Eagles fans. BLG, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Doing good, guys. How's it going?
What's up, BLG? It's finally over. We can look at it. A.J. Brown, shockingly, still a Philadelphia Eagle. I know that surprised you. Joking a little bit. But I would argue, and I'm going to tell you, BLG, Howie made one mistake. He was too proactive. He didn't do anything on the last day. So everybody, why aren't you doing anything on the last day when some splash moves happen? Overall, though, I think it was a very productive trade season for Howie Roseman. How do you take it?
He also didn't really wait last year when they traded for Dotson, and then I think they didn't really I don't think they were very active on deadline day itself. No. But overall, I think I like the energy of what they did in terms of they're looking at themselves as coming off an encouraging win. They're 6-2. They're literally number 1 in the NFC.
That's
playoff
amazing,
picture.
By the way. What a bye week. The most productive bye week in NFL history.
Absolutely. And not even just like the NFC being wide open, but the NFL in itself being wide open with there's just no clear, cut team that like they just definitely can't beat or that looks so amazing week to week. Some teams are better than others, obviously, but I like the spirit of, adding to this team and being aggressive with the resources that they have to an extent, and that they had so many, obviously, to begin with, all these extra draft capital coming into the year, that they're able to use some of that.
BLG, what'd you make of the Phillips move, man? That was obviously the biggest one and a weakness on the team with the edge rushing group. Now you got Brandon Graham. Now you got Jaelan Phillips. How do you feel about his addition to the defensive line for this Eagles team?
Yeah, I think John can back me up on this. When we got to see Jaelan Phillips practice against the Eagles back in 2022, and the Dolphins got the better of the Eagles in that practice by and large. He was a part of it. He had a really good practice, I remember, on that day. And that's obviously just one practice, but you look at the body of work, and it's really just about being able to stay healthy. If he's able to stay healthy, he's going to have an impact. He's going to be able to both disrupt the passer and be able to make some plays in the backfield against the run. So I like the move in terms of the upside that it brings at a position where I thought they could, obviously, we were all talking about they could use some help at edge rusher. He brings an element to that room that they just don't have in terms of the size and athleticism combo. So overall, I think it's a move with upside. Obviously, the downside is that he gets hurt again and you don't have him. And if that's the case, you're like, wow, what a surprise. But the upside is there.
How'd you feel about the compensation they sent?
I think it's fair, especially because it's a late third-round pick. We would, presume, obviously, short of the Eagles totally collapsing like they have in 2023. And the fact that you had 3 third-round picks between your own or and then the Jets one as well, and the comp pick. So I think it's fine to send one, and obviously the later of those out, I would not have been in favor, and then sending the Jets pick out, it's a little too high to me. But yeah, I think it's reasonable. You look at what the Bills gave up to get Amari Cooper last year. It was a very similar kind of package, and obviously that didn't go so well for them. But I don't think it was like a massive overpay or anything.
Yeah. Can I ask both of you real quick, John, before you check in? Is it just me, or our draft picks in general seem to be like overrated when it comes to trades? Like I know they're valuable and you need the cheap players and those different things, but like the hit rate on first round picks in the NFL is like 50%, and it gets lower every round after that. It's like, if you can trade a third round pick for a good player, I mean, to me, it makes a whole lot of sense, but I know people sometimes get their panties in. Oh, don't send this, don't send a second, don't send a third. But I don't know. I feel like draft picks are overrated when it comes to trading for good players, proven players.
Yeah, I think it depends. Again, I think the fact that they have a surplus here is worth noting. Again, they still have what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as many as 7. If the Bryce Huff pick conveys into a fourth, they'd have 7 picks in the first 4 rounds there. So this isn't like they're the Commanders over here. They only have 2 in the first 4 rounds.
Only 2. I saw your tweet about that, BLJ. It was funny.
I talk about life cycles. I like if this is the Miami Dolphins bringing in Jaelan Phillips, I wouldn't agree with that. But the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender. I think it's different for those types of teams. And I subscribe. I've been saying it all week, BLG. If you're a Super Bowl contender, I'm all Les Snead. I'm like F them picks. I don't if I can get somebody who helps me get over the top. That's where I am. And I think this player can help the Eagles get over the top. I think it was of the realistic options. So I'm taking Mike and Miles out of it. I think this is the best they could have done. I think this I think he's a good player. I think he played his best football in 2023 with Vic Fangio. The health is a little bit of a concern, but you're getting players this talented for a reason. And there's always going to be some issues, but I can't find much fault. And I think Howie, I asked him the first question, and he said this was a very easy trade to make. I kind of see why. This, to me, if I were in his position, this would have been an easy trade for me. Would it have been easy for you?
Well, especially when we're considering the Vic Fangio factor. And if Vic Fangio wants this guy, then I mean that's someone who has very much earned the benefit of the doubt, and you'll go into that. And I'm sure it's not just a matter of Vic liking him. I'm sure the Eagles obviously have done their homework on him in the past. They like to go back to those pre-draft evaluations that they do when it comes to these players. I'm sure they had interest in him and they liked him at the time as well. So overall, yeah, I mean, I think going into the trade deadline, I was saying that I kind of want the Eagles to. I think the approach is spend big, really swing for the fences, go for Myles Garrett, which obviously is not just in their control, but the Browns as well. Make that kind of huge move, or maybe take it. Don't sit it out. Don't be in this middle class of payment. But I think when you get Jaelan Phillips available here for a 3rd round pick, again, there's downside. He could get hurt. And then he leaves in free agency. And then what did you really pay a 3rd round pick for? But when you have extra money to spend, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too. BLG, what do you make of where the NFC is right now and how the Eagles kind of stack up? You obviously had a crazy week 9, dude, where the Packers lose, the Lions lose, all 3 NFC East teams lose. It's like a great week for the Eagles. But now it kind of opens up this, like the NFL, as you pointed out, is wide freaking open. Who do you think are the toughest or are the biggest contenders here, going into the second half of the year to kind of be in the conversation as we get closer to the playoffs?
Well, I'm not ready to write off the Packers, although obviously a bad loss to the Panthers there. But if they come out and beat the Eagles, then they're right back up there towards the top of the conference. So, big opportunity for the Eagles here to establish themselves at the top and remain there by beating at that point not only the Packers but also having wins over the Bucs and the Rams, albeit a close one as well. And then they get to face the Lions. So they have some opportunities here to establish themselves. I think the team that might be like the most dangerous team, and it's hard to totally trust in the quarterback situation. But those Seahawks, they have like the best point differential, or one of them in the NFL. They have like the best DVOA in the NFL. They just seem to be clicking. Again, Sam Darnold, do you really trust him in the playoffs? I don't. But at this current point in time, they seem like they might be, being slept on a little bit and might be a much bigger factor than obviously any of us thought.
Yeah, I think the Rams and the Seahawks right now for doing useless power polls, I think they would be near the top more than the Packers and Lions. But that's the nature of the NFL. It's such a week-to-week league. I've talked about this Packers game before you came on, BLG. I think it's a worse spot for the Eagles because they lost to Carolina. In other words, if they beat Carolina, I think it's a better spot. The Eagles have extra prep time. They're very good under Nick Sirianni with extra time. The Packers are kind of on schedule, so to speak, in the NFC North. Now, because they lost, that's what good teams do. That's what the Eagles did when they lost to the Giants. Mm-hmm. They correct. They were very focused that week. I even mentioned it. You could feel it in the locker room. I think you're going to get that out of the Packers. That's not to say the Eagles can't win the game, because I think they can, but I think the spot got more difficult. Agree or disagree with that?
I think that's fair to say. At the same time, I think how the Packers lost that game, that wasn't just like entirely fluky loss, as much as Jordan Love can sometimes really not play well. And you saw that in the playoffs when the Eagles beat the Packers there. So there are times where he just doesn't really intimidate you at all. And if this pass rush, which has some new pieces here, can get after him, might turn over the ball a couple times. And then obviously like the Eagles' chances in that one if they can get some extra possession. So I kind of wonder about Jordan Love, and especially when he loses one of his best weapons in Tucker Kraft,
who has been player.
Awesome this year. So even, regardless of the win or lose against the Panthers there, losing him is just a massive loss, I think, for that offense. Still think they're, again, put forth a good fight, and they still have pieces there. But I do think that Jordan Love maybe trending in the wrong direction, and losing Kraft could hurt them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. BLG, second half of the year for the Eagles. Who's a bigger player to get going offensively? A.J. Brown or Saquon Barkley?
I would say A.J. Brown, because I think the Saquon Barkley thing will work itself out. And didn't you see Tank Bigsby out there last time?
Who
even needs Saquon? No, but I just think that that's going to work itself out with the offensive line. And we saw some encouraging signs of progress there. And as I've said, as we've all been saying, it's not about Saquon so much. It's like, I think he will be okay. He looks okay to me. A.J. Brown, that is a much bigger question mark. I don't know that definitely will be figured out until we see it. So I'm willing to put less faith in that just working itself out organically, and just the way that his numbers are down from where they are, in every other season.
Do you think they build on what they did versus the Giants offensively with the play action and the under center, or was that a one-off? You know what I mean? Will they go back to kind of what they've been doing for 3 years? I mean, how do you kind of see that?
I think they've learned a little bit, because we saw against the Vikings too. It wasn't just a one game thing. I think they saw some things that they need to incorporate. Again, it's more than not at all. It's not they have to run the entire offense from under center every single snap, but they have to have it built in at times. And they didn't really have that in the games earlier this season. So I do think that you get AJ back here, or at least you should be able to. If they don't, it's not on me, it's on them, because you should be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with PLG. You're going to see more under center. It's working for them. You're going to see the big Fred package. You're going to see the whole 9 yards. I don't think they're completely shifting, but it's going to be a bigger part of their offense moving forward. No doubt about that. We haven't talked about the corners. We need to talk about the corners. I think Howie gave the great explanation on Michael Carter. It's not about what people think it is. He just said it's Avonte Maddox. It's having that dual threat. I think it means more to Drew Makuba, honestly, than moving Cooper DeJean. And then Jaire Alexander. I don't know what to think there, but I do know this, BLG. You don't need Kaylee Ringo, Adoree Jackson, Jaire Alexander, and Jacorian Bennett. I'm sure Howie's trying to trade one of them. Probably couldn't even get a 7th round pick. Not Ringo because of his special teams value. But where are you going with that cornerback 2 spot? What's going to happen in your mind?
It's a great question. I do think an interesting theory I saw posited on Alexander is that, while he's healthy enough to play right now, maybe the Eagles are trying to let him be able to kind of settle in and see if he can be healthier and more recovered from those injuries later this year. He might be a bit of a better version of himself, in December than he is right now here in early November. I don't know if that'll be true, but I do think they're kind of, there's some hope there. They have some level of hope there that could happen. On the whole, I mean, I think they're going to try a lot of things. I think they don't want to move Cooper DeJean to the outside, as Vic Fangio will basically tell you. But I do think they're also realizing that at some point in time, they might just have to bite the bullet on that and it might be their best situation where he is on the outside. That would obviously be a situation where they find more of an answer on the inside, and maybe it's Michael Carter. But I just think we're going to see a lot of guys here still. I don't think anyone. I have a hard time believing Keely Ringo is going to like take this job and run with it. Even same thing for Jacorian Bennett, although maybe more of a chance there. I just think we're going to continue to see guys kind of in and out of this lineup until they maybe try and finally find something that sticks.
Defensive snap, real quick, just one follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Defensive snap 1 in Green Bay. Ringo?
I'm gonna go with Bennett because
wow. I do not. They have to create a roster spot for him.
Yeah, but I think like it's maybe it's Vic doesn't trust him, hasn't taken a look, but the fact that Vic talked about wanting to maybe see him more too, maybe you just have to see what you have there.
That's an interesting one. I did not see you going there. Interesting. They created the spot, which in theory could be for anybody, but they need 2 roster spots. They created one with Patrick Johnson, so that in theory would be Nolan Smith coming back. They started his practice window, but Bennett's already in his practice window. So if they cut somebody else or put somebody else on injured reserve, maybe that's as simple as coming up with what was Dory's issue? The concussion, I think. Maybe it's as simple as that. But they would have to create a roster spot. So that's going to be interesting. I like your thought about Alexander getting him healthy, and maybe it's more relevant late in the season than it is immediately. But yeah, I think Keely's going to get the first opportunity. Now, what he does with it.
Yeah, that's a question. BLG, I don't want to muddy this one up. John, I hope I'm not taking your thunder here. This is something that you have been on, so I won't muddy it. And John, I'll let you follow up on it. Jahad Campbell's playing time in the second half of the year will look like what, BLG?
That's a very fascinating question. It should look like he's out there a lot because, again, there was no reason to take him off the field. I know Nakobe Dean is here, and Nakobe Dean can be a good player, but I don't think he's so good that you have to, and obviously so like integrated into this team's future that you simply have to take Jahad Campbell off the field in a big way. Obviously, you can do certain packages. There's certain situations where I'm sure you can get Nakobe involved, but it can't just be that Nakobe Dean is the starting linebacker and Jahad Campbell is the rotational guy or the backup who plays, a little bit. I don't think that's the right way to handle it for both this year and moving forward. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, but I think that's the way it's going. No, I think if it's as simple as Nakobe and base and Jahad and nickel, I don't think that's good enough either. Do you think that's good enough? From the standpoint of I want Jahad playing, I don't think it's good enough to just have him out there in nickel situations.
I think that's fair, but I'd be willing to live with that as opposed to it's just Jahad Campbell not playing.
Yeah. Oof. And I like Nakobe, but I mean, how do you take that guy off the field?
It's tough. Again, because I'm not even looking at it through the lens of this is anti Nakobe Dean. It's not about him. It's just that Jahad Campbell. It's about Nakobe Dean's going to be a free agent after the year. Probably not part of your future, especially when you have Campbell and Bond here. And I just have a hard time feeling like again that you're Jahad Campbell's playing so well, or at least playing well enough, and also just gives you the ability to play well with what he can do in coverage that Nakobe Dean, for as good as he is, just simply cannot do given his size limitations and athletic limitations. I think you have to stick with the upside there, but it's Vic Fangio and he's going to play what he perceives to be the best player.
That's what Vic is going to do, which takes me to the edge. So, all right, Jaelan Phillips is now here. Nolan Smith is coming back. Brandon Graham is back officially. The exemption lifted. He's on the 53. Before the bye, they had 3 guys, and they could steal some snaps at edge for Jahad Campbell. Those are gone. Those are gone. I don't even know how they get Brandon Graham involved. The poor guy. They got him out of retirement because Josh Uche is playing well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give you 60 snaps a game. So we got 120 to divvy them out between Jaelan Phillips, Nolan Smith. You don't have to be perfect, but I don't want to give you math so early in the morning.
Yeah.
But give me a thought process on how you divvy out those edge snaps.
Can I give you rank in terms of how I think they'll rank?
Sure.
I think that might be
sure.
I think I'm going to say Jaylen Phillips number 1, at least to start, especially because we don't know exactly where Nolan Smith is at coming off of this IR stint. So to start out, I think it's going to be Jaylen Phillips number 1. He's obviously played for Vic too, so it's not like there's this huge learning curve here in this new defense that he's in. Not so new. I'm going to go Nolan Smith number 2 because he was the top edge rusher before he got hurt. And I still think the Eagles are very high on him and have high hopes for him. If you want to say that the Phillips trade might not be the best signal for him, that's an interesting thought. But I still think he's going to be a big part of this pass rush. Jairus Hunt number 3 at that point. Jairus has done some really good things here in these past couple of games. Seems to be pointing in the right direction. At the same time, I still think it'd be ideal if he's not quite out there quite as often as he is, if he's that third guy in this rotation. And after that, I mean, yeah, did they bring Brandon Graham out of retirement just to really not play at all? So I guess I'm putting him 4. It could be pretty close with him and Uche. It seems like BG is more of your early downs, maybe guy, whereas Uche could be maybe more in the obvious passing situations, less of a run defender kind of option there. And then I'm going to say that's your 1 through 5, where, again, you have the main top 3 and the other guys are more of, limited role players, occasional snaps.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there, BLG. BLG, I got to ask you about a question here. I know this is a future problem and not something for this season, but when you make a trade for Jaelan Phillips, I'm going to ask you to speculate on what you think the organization and Howie Roseman's thought process is on it. Pay both Nolan and Jaylen. If Jaylen balls out, is it one or the other? Like, how do you kind of see, what do you think their thought process is? I know they don't have to make the decision yet, but what do you think the thought process is going into this second half of the year and off season, where it's like, I got all these guys to pay on defense. I just added a guy who needs a contract quicker than most. I don't really want to let him walk. I gave a 3rd-round pick for him if he produces. What do you think the Eagles' thought process is going into that part of it?
Well, I do think Howie Roseman will not be beholden to sunk cost fallacy and be like, well, because I have to resign him because I gave up the 3. They didn't do that with Golden Tate in a different situation. Might not be apples for apples, depending on how this goes out. But I do think he's willing to let Jaelan Phillips be a rental if that is the situation that unfolds. I think a lot of it is that it's an open mind. I think that's the approach to the situation as it currently stands. I think they're willing to see, can Jaelan Phillips stay healthy? Can he really thrive here? And same thing for Nolan Smith when it comes to, can he stay healthy? Can we rely on him like that? So I think those are the factors. Obviously, you buy yourself a little bit more time, too, with Nolan Smith, since he's still on his rookie contract and isn't expiring the way that Phillips is. But I think they have an open mind about it. I don't think they're coming into this situation with predetermined thought that we definitely have to pick one over the other. And instead, it's going to be very they're going to gather a lot of information on how the rest of this season goes.
With Nolan specifically, and I don't even want to bring Jaelan into this conversation. I know it'll affect it, but to me, this indicates in what's going on this season that I'm pushing it back anyway. Is that where you are? Like, I think a lot of people were like, all right, you got to extend Jalen Carter early. You got to extend Nolan Smith early. I think I can push Nolan Smith back now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your thought process?
Yeah, especially, with the 5th-year option, you have that as a tool. You don't necessarily have to rush to it. We'll see how it goes over the second half of the season. If he does this year what he did last year, then they're going to pay him because obviously, that would be crazy. He was so good to end last year. But anything short of that, they could, just because, they tend to sign guys early, obviously doesn't mean they literally always sign guys early. And have to do that. If they want to buy themselves more time, that's something they can do and have done in certain cases.
I will say this, Howie brought this up yesterday, and he's been true to this. When they are a Super Bowl contender, and they feel they are, they tend not to extend guys in season because they don't want to upset anybody. Now, I was thinking about that from the standpoint BLG is, which I get it. If you want to extend, and they can extend Jalen Carter, for those who don't know, they can extend him till after the season. Nolan Smith either. But so let's take a look at, let's say Jaylen Phillips comes in, plays well for a month, and they want to keep doing business. Vic loves him, blah blah blah. They don't want to extend him because then maybe Reed Blankenship's there. They're going like, "Hey, Vic loves me. He just dogged me up." I get the thought process from Howie. But can that cost you some players as well? I mean, we talk about Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, and not entertaining that a little bit early. Can that hurt you as well?
I think there's downside, but I think the upside still outweighs it, and I think it's fair to wait. I also just don't love in-season extensions from the standpoint of like, player could get hurt right after signing that and be out for the rest of that season. Obviously, I know they can get hurt too after signing an off-season extension, but then you have a lot more time to prepare for that injury with all that money you spent than you did, in season. And I think that has happened to the Eagles. Was it the Brandon Brooks extension? I think later in his career he got hurt in that 2018 season or 2019. There's a year there, I think, where Brandon Brooks was.
Yeah, that was Tim Jernigan.
I think you're right. I think it was that year.
Yeah, so there is downside too to when you do things like that and guys get hurt, and then all of a sudden you're paying for a player that they aren't anymore. So I like
that might be the case right now with Cam Jurgens. I hate to say it, but
that wasn't it. I forget if Tim. I think Jernigan was in season as well, and he got hurt, but that was later when the injury happened. But anytime there's obviously with injuries, it can affect things. But it's interesting that when they truly believe they're super, that gives you an indication they really believe they're super, and they should. But I think that should be something that buoys the fans because they know they're a Super Bowl contender, and they don't want to upset the apple cart when they're a Super Bowl contender by, playing favorites, so to speak. Offensively, we brought up AJ a little bit. I just want to wrap things up with AJ from the standpoint, we knew he wasn't getting traded, but whatever, unless somebody came in with some massive offer. I do leave it open in the offseason now. If things continue to go poorly, or there are moments in the regular season or the rest of this season, because they're going to be in the playoffs as well, I do leave the door slightly ajar in the offseason for them to revisit moving on. Have you gotten to that point, or are you still, no, they're not trading a great player?
I lean towards overall no, but I do think, it's certainly more possible than it was in season this year. That's the thing. That was never going to happen to me. Like, that just didn't make any sense at all. When they're competing for the Super Bowl, when the salary cap situation is what it is, that just wasn't going to happen. Like, 0% chance to me. This is more than a 0% chance in the offseason. I think it's more possible. But I also think between now and then, there's a lot of time. And a lot of things can change. That could be for the better. That could be for the worse. I would just say any kind of idea that it's like a foregone conclusion that he is definitely gone, I think that's a little too much and too premature because, again, things could change.
BLG, last question for me, man. 9 games to go for the Eagles. They sit at 6-2. How many games will they win and lose in their final 9 here to finish up the season?
Let me look up the schedule. Man, I'm forgetting who they even play here right now.
The Packers, the Lions, they got the Bears, the Cowboys, they got the Raiders in there, they got the Commanders twice, the Bills, and I think they're and the Chargers.
That's Commanders games look easier. I'll tell you that.
Yes, they do. Yeah, that team, man. Who could have seen it coming that the Commanders would take a step back?
Well, I picked them to win the division.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm with you, BLG. I was all the commies this year.
Well, sorry, that wasn't the shot at you, John.
No, I don't run. I picked them because nobody's won the damn division back to back in 2 decades. So
entirely
I'm
fair.
like, yeah, I was going with the odds.
Yeah.
But talking about this bye week, and you never like to see it, but I mean, not only did everything go right from wins and losses, but Green Bay loses Tucker Kraft and Washington loses Jaden Daniels. I mean, you never like to see injuries, at least I don't. But I mean, everything came up Philadelphia Eagles on this bye week. Everything. It was pretty amazing. But I digress. Go back to your second half part of the schedule. What do you think they're going to finish?
Yeah, I think I think that it's easy to be between like 6 and 7 wins here because you see like the winnable games. You look at Dallas, the Bears, the Chargers, the Raiders, 2 Washington games. Not to say they're definitely going to win all of those, but I think those all seem they should be pretty winnable. The tough ones, the toughest 3 should be at the Packers versus the Lions coming up here, and then in Buffalo against Josh Allen there. So. I'm going to go 7. I think they win 7 more, and they finish with 13 wins.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's probably getting you the number 1 seed this year. Maybe. We'll see where the Rams.
Well,